Continuing our theme from last week, how to prepare for those critical Q4 supplier negotiations, today I'll talk about the deadlines that suppliers are always imposing to get a deal done. Last week I emphasized the importance of good communication with your internal stakeholders, and nowhere is that more apparent than when you're talking about deadlines. And it's not always the suppliers trying to impose a date on getting a contract signed. A lot of times, internal stakeholders will also impose a hard date to get a deal done. And here again, it's really important to listen to your stakeholders and ask questions. The first thing that I always ask is, what's going to happen if we don't meet the date? I once saw a VP screaming, like a crazy person, at a procurement associate because he wanted to get a $100,000 PO cut by the end of the day for some software that he needed for his project. And this poor associate was so intimidated by the VP that she just said okay and started working on the PO. But I didn't work for the company. I was a consultant brought in by the CFO. Also, I hate workplace bullies and will never pass up an opportunity to screw with them. So I asked the VP what was going to happen if we didn't get the PO out by the end of the day. Were the lights going to go off? Would we be declaring bankruptcy? Would there be a swarm of locusts and frogs raining down from the sky? Well, it turned out that there would be no impact to the organization other than this VP getting a little bit of egg on his face because he'd gone out and asked the supplier to send him the software licenses and he promised them a PO by the end of the day. So I called the supplier and I told them that they would not be getting a PO until we'd had a chance to review and negotiate the license agreement. Of course, they complained that, they'd already sent over the licenses. So I explained to them that, first of all, they were under no obligation to send us any licenses without a PO. They chose to do that. Secondly, those licenses needed to go through an entire development and testing process before we'd see any productive value out of them. And finally, I personally thought it was a bad idea for this VP to sole source them as a supplier for this project. So I'd be happy to send the licenses back and we'd open it up for an RFP. That last point really hit a nerve, and suddenly this requirement for a PO went away. And this happens a lot with software suppliers who want to get their product in quickly to avoid the RFP process. Also, suppliers are motivated by other factors like quarter end and year end. It's no secret that software salespeople are some of the most well compensated in the sales industry. So a lot of times when they're pushing for a deadline, it's not to your benefit, it's to theirs. Which is why I never take a supplier's deadline seriously. Now I really hope these short videos are providing some valuable food for thought as you prepare for Q4. If you'd like to dive a bit deeper into the topic of negotiations, check out my workshop at oneviewnow.com. And if you need help with your upcoming negotiations, message me directly on LinkedIn or email me at mfaraday@oneviewnow.com and we'll find a time to chat.